Good morning. There we go. Thank you so far to hear from Michelle, Tyler. I'm thankful for you guys to hear from you, Jonathan. I'm grateful for Tyler and Michelle specifically. I've got daughters who are in their areas of ministry, and I'm just thankful for what Jonathan does in leading us in worship. If we haven't met, my name is Adam Mitchell, and I serve as the pastor for missions and men's ministry here. And I get 7 minutes to talk about two areas of ministry. I'm calling foul on that one. So let's get to it. First of all, I do think it is important for us to recognize that both of these areas of ministry that I'm going to talk about and all of the areas of ministry that you're going to hear about over the next couple of weeks, they're meant to help us accomplish our mission, which is what? To glorify God and make disciples by inviting our community to enjoy fulfilling lives in Christ. Everything that we do should help us accomplish that mission. So I want to talk first about Faith Forward as it concerns men's ministry. And I just want to share with you what I hope to see from the men of the church at Liberty Park. And what I'm about to tell you, it can be hard to measure, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily hard to see. And it's this: I want to see growth in spiritual maturity. To see husbands, dads, the single men of our church grow in Christ-likeness, to be more and more like Jesus, to have continual growth in leadership at home, in the church, and in the community, to see growth in service and ministry as we seek to go make disciples of our community, as we seek to go make disciples of all the nations, to see growth in these three areas. So how do we do that? A few different ways that we do that. One of those I'm going to call discipleship events. And I've got a slide to show you. We've got the Man Church. One opportunity that we have coming up, January 24th and 25th of next year, the Man Church Conference. I'm calling this a discipleship event because this is an opportunity that is specifically designed for us to be together and to encourage one another in our walk with the Lord and to grow in our walk with the Lord. So if you're interested in that, it's a Friday night and a Saturday morning. We'll go grab some dinner on Friday night. We'll go worship and hear the Word of God and fellowship together in that. Let me know if you're interested in going to that. We've got plenty of spots available right now. The Man Church Conference, that's a discipleship event that we have coming up soon. The other thing that I'll say, we have fellowship events, and the Men's Ministry Council and I met last week, and we started just kind of brainstorming some ideas of what we can do to have quarterly fellowship events. And the first one that we'll have coming up for the winter quarter, which will be early next year, is the Chili Cook-Off. Now, I know we had that last year, and I don't know how long we've had that, but it appears to be a pretty big hit. I mean, we get together and we eat chili, and we get judged on it. So we'll let you know. We're finalizing the date on that. We'll let you know when that's going to be. We were throwing out ideas for spring and summer. I think for the fall, we're gonna have a repeat of our fish fry. We had about 100 fathers and sons who showed up for our fish fry back in September. And one thing that I can promise you is there will be banana pudding next time. I'm still catching heat over that. So it will be done next time. But those are fellowship events that we plan to have quarterly next year. Just opportunities for us to be together, to get to know one another, to share some time together. And ultimately, the aim of all this, these discipleship events that we'll have, fellowship events, is to get as many Liberty Park men as possible connected to a small group. Right now, we have 8 men's small groups that meet at different times and places throughout the week. Men, if you're not involved in one right now, there is an open and ongoing invitation for you to join one of our men's small groups, for you to get plugged in. So come talk to me, reach out to me, and I will help you get plugged in, because here's what we need to do. We need to continue to grow spiritually. We need to continue to grow in leadership, and we need to continue to grow in service and ministry. Next, Faith Forward in missions. As we finish up this year, I want to remind you of a couple of things. One, November 23rd, we have our Family to Family, our partnership with Strong Tower Church in Montgomery. We'll be going down there delivering food to unchurched and needy families that Strong Tower Church has been seeking to connect with. This is our 9th year of doing this. And I do want to thank you. We brought in almost right at $5,000 to help provide food for these families down there. Continue to pray for this as we get ready to go here in a couple of weeks. And also, we've got a good group going right now, but if you want to go, this is just an easy kind of entry-level mission opportunity. So if you want to go, let me know. We will make room for you. Another, and you've probably seen this in the email that we sent out, Oak Tree Ministries, one of our local partners, something that we've been involved in, somebody that we've been involved with for a while now. They need our help with Christmas in the Village. It's a program in which they provide affordable gifts to families in the Marks Village housing project that is over there. It's in town. It's right here in town, and they need our help. We've been involved for a number of years, and we want to keep serving them in whatever way we can. As we head into next year, I want to highlight a couple of opportunities. One is Guatemala, something that's kind of a long-standing mission for our church. We've got 2 trips that are on the books right now, a construction trip in March. We've got a medical ministry trip in July. Both of those have dates that are firm, that are solid right now. Get in on those. We've got a third that we're kind of playing by ear right now, seeing just how some things go. But both of these trips have room. And so if you want to go, if you're skilled in construction, perhaps even if you're not skilled in construction, be a part of that trip. And in March, and then in July, go do help with some medicine, some medical ministry, and then doing youth ministry, children's ministry stuff while we're there as well. I've teased this out a little bit, but I want to introduce one new national partnership, and it's Clarkston International Bible Church in Clarkston, Georgia. And it's in the Atlanta metro area. This is a church, and we've shared this before, but when I went just a couple of months ago and visited with them, they told me there are over 120 languages that are spoken just in Clarkston. And so I'm telling you, we've got a great opportunity to go do things like backyard Bible clubs, to do training with them. And it's an amazing opportunity because it's a way to go get your feet wet in doing international missions and doing international work, just making a 2.5-hour drive. And so if you're interested in that at all, come talk to me, because we want to get a trip planned. We want to get something on the books and go partner with Clarkston International Bible Church. And so as I finish up, I just want to answer this question: how do I get involved? How can you get involved? 3 ways that you can get involved specifically: pray, give, and go. Pray, give, and go. Listen, we're excellent and faithful, and have been for a long time, in giving. I want us to increase in our prayer for the nations. And I want us to increase in our going for and to the nations. Because when I say pray, give, go, I don't mean one. This is not a la carte ordering on here. This is a combo meal. So participate in all of them. I'm going to pray, I'm going to give, and I'm going to go. Just a couple of quick ideas. Small groups, and I know some of you probably already do this, but adopt one of our partners. What I've shared with you is just a little snippet. So come talk to me, because we've got a list of partners that we serve with. But small groups, adopt one of our partners and serve with them. Moms and dads, take your kiddos to buy gifts for Christmas in the Village. Talk to me about it, but let's finish this year strong with Family to Family in Montgomery, with Christmas in the Village. Let's head into next year ready to increase our missions efforts. I'm looking forward to it. And we need as many of you involved as is humanly possible. I'm sure that I'm over my time now, so I yield the floor to Nate. Thank you.
Church, I hope you've seen this today, and you'll see this next week. We have a great team of leaders in our church, and I'm very thankful to be able to work with them and to see that they pour their lives and their hearts and their faith into everything that they do. And I'll be honest, they're just scratching the surface of what they do. We're going to see some more next week, but there's so much more that goes on each and every week through these ministries. And so I hope you're encouraged by that. As we kind of wrap up today, I want to ask a question that I want you to take home with you. What does faith look like? For you, for me, as we think about taking our next step of faith into the new year, what does faith look like? I've asked that at different times in my life. Maybe you've asked that when you found yourself at a crossroads. Maybe you had a lot of opportunities before you. Maybe you had no opportunities before you. Perhaps you've asked that in a relationship with a loved one, with a spouse, with a child, a family member. Maybe you've asked that. Maybe God is prompting you to take a step of faith with your finances or with your time or with your opportunities, investing your talents. But what does faith look like? Just real briefly, I want to look at a passage in Luke 21. We're going to look at verses 1 through 4, where Jesus points out a picture of faith. And as we look at this picture of faith this morning, we're not going to answer every specific question that you have about your situation or every question I have about my situation. But what we're going to see is we're going to see a new perspective. We're going to see a principle about how Jesus looks at faith. And hopefully as we gain this new perspective, we're going to be able to look at our specific situations and see maybe what Jesus wants us to do as we take our next step. So look at chapter 21. We're going to look at verses 1 through 4. As you turn there, just want to set the scene a little bit. This is the last week of Jesus' life. This is Tuesday. At the end of this week, Jesus will be crucified. He will be buried. He will die. And as he walks toward the cross, what does he do? He prepares his disciples. He gathers all of his disciples to him. And in this week, we have just tons of his teaching recorded in the New Testament. And so on Tuesday, Jesus is in the temple teaching his disciples. He's in the court of the women. As you walked into the temple, there are a lot of different levels of access. This level meant that Jewish men and women could go in. And in the court of the women, he sees 13 offering chests. That's where the Jewish people would take their ministry offerings in. They paid a temple tax. This was not the temple tax. This was above and beyond. But they saw these big chests with what looked like a trumpet at the top made out of bronze. Now, in that day and age, you didn't have paper currency. You had metal coins. And so as people walked in and they dropped their metal coins into these big chests with this big trumpet made of brass, what do you think happened? You heard it. Clang, clang, clang. And so the more you put in, the more of a display you made. So keep that in mind. Verse 1, Jesus looked up, so he's sitting, he looks up, and he saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box. He probably heard a loud noise because they were putting in large gifts. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. He probably didn't hear anything at all. And he said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty put in all she had to live on." Just 3 quick thoughts. Jesus looked. Jesus saw who was giving. Jesus, who was fully man and fully God, took time out of the last week of his life to stand across from this offering box because he knew this widow was coming. And he wanted to see her faith. This was not God sitting looking in judgment. This was a loving father looking to see his child, cheering his child on, saying, "Come on, you can do it," and waiting for that step of faith. Second thought, Jesus evaluates. He sees things differently than we do. In verse 3, he said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them," to which we would say, "Wait a second, Jesus. All these other people were rich." The disciples were probably thinking, "I heard their offerings. You had to. They were pouring in bags and bags of gold and silver. And all she put in were 2 small copper coins, which amounted to a couple of pennies." But Jesus said, "Wait a second. She put in more than all the rest of them." Jesus wasn't looking at the size, at the monetary value of their gifts. He was looking at the amount of faith that they had. In verse 4, he says, "This is how I evaluate it." He said, for they all contributed out of their abundance. They gave out of their extra. They gave out of their surplus. They're not going to miss what they had, what they gave. But she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. This widow who couldn't own property, who couldn't hold down a job, who only had these 2 copper coins to her name. She walked up to that offering box that day. She didn't know that God was watching her, but he was. She probably had her head down because she was ashamed of her little offering, but it was all she had. And she dropped it into that trumpet-like chest, trusting that God was going to provide for her. And the truth I want you to walk away from today is that God is pleased when we entrust ourselves to him. This little widow, she entrusted all of her life, all of her resources, all of her future to a God who she believed was going to provide for her. That's what faith is. And God is pleased with our faith when we entrust ourselves to him, when we entrust our life, when we entrust our resources, when we entrust our future to him. And you say, well, that's great, but how do I know that God's going to provide for me? In Romans 8:32, the Apostle Paul wrote this. He said, he, God, who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? How can you trust that God is going to take care of me if I entrust myself completely to him? How can I do that? Because God has already sacrificed his son. He sacrificed his son for you and for me. He gave us that gift so that we might have a relationship with God. And so what does faith look like? It looks like entrusting ourselves completely to God. This morning, maybe God has encouraged you to take a step of faith hearing one of these ministry opportunities. You're worried, you're a little hesitant. Will you entrust yourself to God? Today, maybe you have wanted to know more about Jesus, but you're just kind of sitting on the fence and you're afraid that somebody's going to think that you don't know enough or that you're strange if you ask. The invitation to you is to entrust yourself to God. Come and see. Come talk to us. Let us tell you about who Jesus is. Maybe you're ready to take that step of faith, to place your faith of Jesus. Entrust yourself to Jesus. Let today be the day of your salvation. Jonathan's going to come up and lead us in a song. And as he does, I just want you to be open-handed and to ask God as you sing, God, what does faith look like to me? And as the Holy Spirit leads you to respond, I encourage you to respond to him.